Hi, this is Mike Kennedy, M005 Kennedy with you today. Here I'm going to talk about one of my favorite little cameras that has just recently come back to life, although it could have had life all along. This is the Pentax 110 Auto. This is a small SLR that takes 110 film. Now, the Kodak and everybody stopped making 110 film quite a while ago, but recently Lomo has started making 110 film again. So you can go on their page. It's $7.95 a roll plus shipping, so it's not the cheapest thing in the world. But when we talk about resolution and things, this is one of this 18mm normal lens that's on here, no, 24mm lens that's on here, was considered one of the best lenses that was ever put on a sub-miniature camera. So you know you got a good lens here. So if you focus this automatic exposure, you're really in for a really decent class negative. I was reading some discussions, and it is true that a 110 negative taken from a camera like this has much more resolution than a high definition computer screen can hold. So if I was to take this negative and have it scanned super expertly or printed super expertly, then scanned it, then put it on my computer, I would notice that detail actually can't be captured. So that just gives you an idea. If you like the detail on your laptop screen that's 15 or 17 inches wide, this can outdo that. So that gives you an idea. Okay. Now this comes with a dedicated flash that I don't have right with me right now. You would plug it in here, and it will actually push this button and turn it into a 1/30th of a second for the shutter speed. But it had a tuning feature, which is really nice. I call it a tuning feature. The F number would change according to where you focused it. So therefore, it would ensure proper exposure for what you focused it on. So that was a neat little idea. Now here I have, this is the normal 24mm. I have a wide angle 18mm. And I have a telephoto, which is 50mm. Now, what's kind of nice about these things is, again, film cameras dramatic price drop. And again, price drop again because they stopped making 110 film. Well, now there is 110 film again. But I'll tell you something about this. There are several 110 cameras that were made that didn't use the built-in sprocket hole on the 110 film to advance the film. In other words, most cameras had a key in them, and they would advance the film until that little key, well, going this way, I guess your film's in the back, that little key would feel the hole and it would stop. So it would know where to expose the film, because there's a area that is a mask out around the film. Well, Pentax and there were several other cameras that don't need that hole at all and still expose it right where it's supposed to be and everything. But the big advantage to that in a camera like this is you could reload it with any 16mm film. Again, because it doesn't depend on the hole, you could put double perf, single perf, or no perf film in there and it would still work. Preferably you'd use no perf. But so the only restriction with this is they made several different models of this. I've got just the basic model. They had some models that did ASA 400 film too, and I don't believe this is one of them. I'd have to check. I've got a couple of these actually. And they were built to expose around ASA 100 because, again, when they were made, the big films were Kodacolor 80 and plus X 125. So exposing at 100 did well on the slide film. Color print film, they had slide film too, the 64, SA64, and it did well on the print film, okay? So, but as long as you can develop a film for an ASA of 100, you can put it in here and it will be exposed properly, automatically. And there are some very interesting films they've come out with lately. Now, you would think loading a 110 cartridge would be really hard, but the only thing that's really hard about it is getting a 110 cartridge apart in the first place. And personally, I found the older the 110 cartridge, the easier it is to take apart. I had some old Konica 110 cartridges, and they seem to pop right apart because what happens over the years and years is the glue that was used to glue, or the spot welding, I don't know how they were constructed, I think some of them were glued, that glue eventually became weak and it became very easy to take the parts apart. Whereas I can remember trying to take apart a Fuji cassette and basically destroyed the cassette trying to take it apart. But you basically have to disassemble a cassette so that you can, in the dark, you can match the proper length of film up with that paper leader, wind it up, put it in one side of the cartridge, put it onto the other side and tape it. And there you go, you're all set. I believe you could either use 12 or 24 exposures in this. Now, something that was bad about the initial run of Lomo film, you can see here, is normally you would look on the back, there's no exposure counter, and no problem because the 110 film says on the back how many exposures there are. Well, look at this. Lomo forgot to print it on there. So really, you got to keep count of how many pictures you take, or just notice when there's no film in it. You know, you could look up, and when you take an exposure, you would see that you could see the light from the film, the mirror flipping up and hitting the back here. And if there was no film or paper there, you're going to see it. So that's pretty lame, but that's one way you could tell. But I'm told the new Lomo film all has the numbered paper. So, but this is a really nice camera. I keep it in a bag with me for taking some pictures. And I worked in photo finishing for 14 years. And I'll tell you, I saw some pretty amazing 110 pictures coming out of some higher end 110 cameras. And now we have film that blows the socks off the film that they had then. For the ultimate, what I would do with this is I would slit down. Kodak has Ektar film, which is a super sharp film. It's ASA 100, so it would fit in perfectly with the exposure theme here. I would take a 35mm roll and slit it down to 16mm and put it in a cartridge like this, and you'd have astounding pictures. As it is now, before, as 110 film was growing old, they switched all over to ASA 400 film. Now, some of the Pentax cameras, there was a Super Pentax and different ones. Some of them had a thing on the back and they would sense the notch that's in the cartridge, but some of them didn't. So it is true that they have cartridges for 400 and cartridges for 100, or what became 200 later. But you got to be careful because some of the cartridges that were manufactured with 400 film in them are actually in cartridges that key for ASA 100. So that's kind of stupid, but I guess they didn't care because most of those films were going into cameras that couldn't tell what the ASA was anyway. They were just box cameras that had one shutter speed, and that was it. But so here we have one of the really better or best 110 camera films that were out here. Interchangeable lenses, through the lens focusing. You had these three basic lenses, you had a bunch of filters, then there was a zoom lens, I think there was a teleconverter. I also want to point out about this camera, it had a winder too. It can take a winder. So there you had a 110 camera with an auto winder, auto exposure. The flash was automatic. And two, I want to point out too that unlike some more classic cameras, this takes batteries, the 76 batteries that are currently available today. They still use them in a lot of equipment, so you can get batteries for it anywhere. Although I must admit the batteries in these seem to last forever. It's one of those situations, nice situation, where the battery's only activated when you press the shutter button. So just for that brief period of time, there's a light inside the camera that if you, I don't know if this will work, but if you press the shutter down halfway, it's green or red. Tells you the exposure. Actually, it looks like orange or green, but so there's no question there. And I've had a lot of fun with this in the past, and I'm hoping to have some more fun with it in the future, as I hope to set up a dark room and get back into really doing some of the film things. So there's something some people might haven't seen for a while. I guess I'd like to point out too is that these can be had quite inexpensively now. So if you want to do something like this, you're not going to spend too much to get into a 110 Pentax system with the wide angle and the telephoto, the normal. They had other lenses. The zoom lens is more expensive, but the price of these have dropped quite a bit, especially, and I assume they'll stay dropped, as most people think that, number one, there is no new film available for them, and as people, I guess all but 0.0001% of the population that uses cameras never knew that you could put non-110 film in this by reloading the 110 cartridge. And of course I've got to point out, okay, our film source was going to be Lomo, and then our source for directions, subclub.org, for reloading the 110 cartridge. And also, I guess I would be remiss if I didn't mention, he has 16mm film that's slit. So you could buy the film from him, cut it to the right length, and then you could put it in the cartridge yourself. So there we go. The Pentax Auto 110, the 110 SLR. The last thing I'll leave you with, there was a page I kept out of a popular photography magazine. I've got it somewhere, but it talks about how 110 film is destined to replace 35mm, but it didn't. So there we go. Mike Kennedy with you saying, take an old camera out, put some film in it, try it out. You may think more of film in the older cameras than you do of your newer cameras.